Daily, and Sports Weekly. We have an announcement. We will be changing the name of this podcast to the Ames Angle, focusing on one key aspect every week, along with all things cycle and sports. I'm Henry Annan, the assistant sports editor here at the Iowa State Daily.
I'm Aleigha Bailey. I am the editor of the sports desk.
This week, we'll be talking about men's and women's basketball, going over their next stretches. We'll be bringing in sports reporter Noah LeBlanc to talk about Iowa State wrestling alumni currently involved in professional combat sports. We'll also return Threads of the Week with Noah LeBlanc with a special jersey that he has. And then our main angle of the week is the women's basketball team still proving strong without a dominant performance from Audie Crooks.
Now it's time for the men's and women's basketball quick recaps.
Men's basketball has now won 4 games in a row with dominant wins over Colorado and Kansas State. They have a big stretch of games coming up at Hilton Coliseum, hosting Kansas on Valentine's Day at noon. That game's on ABC. And then on short rest, host number 8 Houston that Monday.
Similar to the men's, the women's picked up 4 easy wins over conference competition following a 5-game losing skid, and as they head to their next 2 games on the road, they head out west to see if they can continue this streak.
On this week's Sports Reporter feature, we are bringing in sports reporter Noah LeBlanc to talk about some Iowa State wrestling alumni, Kyvan Gadsden and David Carr. Noah, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm super excited to be on here talking about this today. So, yeah, I wanted to talk about Kyvan Gadsden and David Carr, 2 alumni from Iowa State that have gone on to do some pretty cool things in the combat sports realm. So I'm excited to kind of dive into that, and let's just get right into it.
Yeah, we can start with Gadsden. The kid has quite the resume. I don't know why I call McKay, he's way older than me. But Gadsden was a 2015 NCAA champion at 197 pounds and a 3-time Big 12 champion at 197. Currently fighting in the MMA, in Myriad MMA Academy out of Ames. He's undefeated, a pro record, and seems like a submission kind of king right now. Noah, what do you see with that? I know you've kind of been involved with watching him as a fan, obviously, but then the martial arts club too. Just what do you got?
Yeah. Kyvan's a killer, man. He's a great wrestler, obviously national champion here at Iowa State, and he's great for the community as well. That's one of the things that I really like about him. He is an Ames guy through and through, right? Even after he graduated, he stuck around. He's a coach at Myriad now, so he's kind of bringing in the next generation of fighters to Ames. And he also works during the day at the Iowa State Foundation, which is pretty cool, helping us out with NIL for all of his other sports as well. So, yeah, he had his first pro fight this fall. I was able to score a huge takedown in the first round and just get him down and beat him by Americana. So it was pretty exciting to watch. You know, he's a little older for getting into the game at pro MMA. He's 33 years old. But, yeah, at heavyweight, it's always a little dicey. So we'll see if he's able to make a run. Hopefully he's able to do it, but yeah.
You talked about mixed martial arts. I got into like one of my buddies introduced me to the UFC earlier this year, and I love it now. I'd never really watched it, and he explained it to me, and now watching all these events and seeing all the things, and I know that's way down the line for Gadsden if he ever gets there. He's, like you said, he's older for a fighter, but yeah.
Yeah, so one of the things that's cool about Kyvan, too, is he is a little older, but he has the credentials for it, right? He's shown that he's one of the best in the country. He's routinely hanging out with guys that are at a high level. He trained at Kill Cliff MMA a couple weeks ago, getting ready for his fight that's coming up here. And, yeah, he's in those rooms, right? And one of the things that's interesting about heavyweight in the UFC is it's not very deep. There are about 5 guys at the top of the division that can actually go, and the guys below that, kind of mix it up here and there, but there's definitely an opportunity, and you're seeing a lot of these American wrestlers come in and make an impact right away in the UFC.
Another Iowa State wrestling alum that is still making a mark around the Ames area is David Carr, and Carr is involved more on the Iowa State campus than Gadsden. Hard to believe, but Carr still trains in this Ames area, and he's currently fighting for Real American Freestyle in the professional wrestling world. And he's also just defeated the world champ in Yoshinosuke Aoyagi.
Yeah, I think it's very cool what he's been able to do over at Real American. Obviously, that promotion was started last summer by Hulk Hogan before he passed and Eric Bischoff. It's kind of interesting because it's like unscripted pro wrestling, which you don't see a lot, so they have all the presentation, and they've got some big matchups going on over there. And it's pretty cool to see Carr get to be a part of that.
Carr was a two-time NCAA champion at 165 pounds in 2021 and 2024, and a four-time Big 12 champion at the same weight, 165 pounds, 2020 through 2024, and a four-time All-American.
Yeah, Carr at Iowa State made a huge impact in his time here. Obviously, folk-style college wrestling, right? But when you're looking at pro wrestling, you're looking more at a freestyle base. And he's definitely made an impact in that at Real American. And also, like you said, he recently just beat a world champion as well. So that's kind of the cool part, right, is that he's got all these accolades under his belt, but he's not slowing down anytime soon. And as we look towards the Olympics in Los Angeles in 2028, you know, Carr could absolutely be a part of that, and I think he could make a run at medaling even. So that's one of the things that's definitely we're looking at down the line. And I know that you mentioned also that he chose to go the freestyle route rather than the MMA route, but one of the things that Carr's talked about too is he's looking at making that switch as well. And these guys that have came in from college wrestling into MMA and eventually the UFC, there's really no ceiling to what they can accomplish, right? We've seen guys like Brock Lesnar who have been national champions that go in and immediately kick down the door in the UFC and take over. And so it'll be interesting to see in the next few years kind of where his career goes because it's really limitless.
Yeah, you talked about making the switch from wrestling to the UFC aspect of things. And in the current day of NIL, name, image, and likeness in college wrestling, it's been reported, no official amounts, but there's a crazy amount of money involved in college wrestling, especially rumored around this Iowa State wrestling team. Maybe just figuring out the financial side of things between maybe Real American Freestyle and making a UFC run.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something to think about. And this whole Real American thing, it's definitely new to the scene, right? So it's awesome because it's been a way for some of these guys that have made a huge name for themselves in college to continue on. Whereas beforehand, really the only route that you'd see guys go when they wanted to continue competing at a high level was into the MMA and then eventually the UFC. But these guys like David Carr or Wyatt Hendrickson as well out of Oklahoma State that have made a huge name for themselves in college have found a new home for themselves and been able to beat some huge names. David Carr took down Bilal Muhammad, UFC welterweight champion, by tech fall, and it really made a splash in the scene, right? So you're seeing these guys clash with huge names, and yeah, I don't know how that looks financially for them, but there's really no telling where things could kind of go with that.
And now it's time for Threads of the Week. Obviously, I'm just supporting the Pop-Tarts Bowl. It's one of my favorite events of the year. But we got our guest, Noah, rocking our Threads of the Week. Noah, what do you got this week?
I got the old Donald Duck baseball jersey here. Nothing too crazy, but yeah, my girlfriend wanted to be Donald and Daisy Duck for Halloween, and yeah, I just kind of do what she tells me there. So yeah, I ended up with the sweet Donald Duck jersey, and yeah, I haven't had the chance to break it out since October, so very happy to be wearing it here.
And now you're breaking it out on the Ames Angle.
There we go, yeah. Yeah, great spot for it.
Now it's time for the Ames Angle of the Week. This week, we'll be focusing on the women's basketball team and how strong they performed against UCF without necessarily a great game from Audie Crooks.
With the 65-52 victory over UCF, one thing stood out. Audie Crooks nearly broke her 89-game double-digit scoring streak at the hands of physicality.
Yeah, the UCF Knights, their forwards, really came into this one wanting to shut down Audie Crooks at all cost. The Knights were sending double, triple teams, and just being extremely physical with Audie.
With all the defensive attention on Audie, one thing stood out, that all the other Cyclones found their way to shoot.
Yeah, junior guard Jada Williams led the team in points with 23 on not the greatest shooting, 11 for 21 from the field. But the star of the game was Ariana Jackson, AJ, as everyone calls her. 18 points on 50% shooting from 3. She made 6 3-point jumpers, all of her points coming from beyond the arc.
With a strong emphasis on physicality, one thing stood out. The points paid started to disappear while the shots from deep started to become the target.
The physicality in the contest was noticeable from a fan's perspective. Aleigha and I were both there. Bill Fenley said post-game that this was a great officiating crew, that this crew will talk to you. This crew will explain what they're doing. And as an official myself in basketball at the youth and high school level, I can second what Bill Fenley is standing for. Refs are going to call fouls both ways evenly. They're not going to put a favoritism on one team or the other, but they're going to call something consistently across the board. So I asked Bill Fenley how he coaches his players in communicating with the refs. He says exactly that. You got to talk to them. They're going to have a conversation with you, and you got to adapt to what they're calling. You can't just complain about it. You have to change what you're doing to give yourself the competitive advantage.
With the officiating going both sides, we saw plenty of conflict between Audie Crooks and forward Savannah Scott of UCF. That led to finding other outlets shooting.
Savannah Scott and Audie Crooks only shared the court for a little over 5 minutes. Savannah Scott played like 5 minutes in the first half and then like a minute in the second half. And the pair was the most physical matchup that we saw all night. They would be holding each other, elbowing each other, all while exchanging subtle words towards each other. And it was on both sides of the court that the other one would be holding or elbowing, just simply fighting for position. Also involved were Alyssa Williams of Iowa State and UCF junior center Kala Ngodu.
With all these clashes, one thing stood out. Evangelia Polk for Iowa State found her way to shooting 9 points on 50% shooting with 6 boards in the contest.
This win not only was a good Big 12 win, but it put the whole country on notice that this Cyclone team can win without Audie Crooks dropping 20 to 30 points. Audie Crooks had 10 points. A decent amount of those points came late in the game too. So Jada Williams, AJ, and EP, they can carry this team to Big 12 wins, and with Audie Crooks too, this Cyclone team looks back like a national contender. Now we are moving forward to our tweet of the week. This week's tweet comes from KCCI Sports Director Scott Reister. And the Iowa State Cyclones football team looks like a bunch of offensive linemen, and I think I even see kicker Kyle Conradi in there. They showed up at an Iowa Wild game and were going nuts. Multiple rounds of shirt waving, and the big guys in the middle. The crowd rallied around these Cyclones, and it looked like the Iowa Wild got out of there with a 2-1 shootout victory. And Aleigha and I were talking about it earlier, and Aleigha was there the night before the Cyclones decided to show up. If you want to be featured on next week's episode of Tweet of the Week, you can tag me, Henry_Annan, on X.
Thanks for tuning in to the introductory episode of the Ames Angle. Like, comment, and subscribe to see more.
And cut.